Okay guys, I'm going to demo doing the tape paintings for you. So I have my kitchen table set up. I've got a big piece of cardboard on here. If you don't have an artist board, which I didn't require you guys to buy this quarter because we were going to be doing this in class. You can just use cardboard. So I've taped 2 sheets of paper to my artist board here. What you can do is you could either just tape the edges and work with them loose on top of the cardboard. You could tape them to cardboard if you wanted, if that would make them easier. The one thing is you're gonna need kind of time and place to let them dry in between coats. And I evidently didn't tape this one down very flat. Okay, so I just have 2 set up because I'm gonna work with them together and kind of make a diptych, which is 2 pieces that read as one. But you could totally just do 1 at a time. You can do 2 at a time. If you do them independently, what's nice is when this one is drying, you can switch to this one and vice versa. So you can do a layer here, let it dry, start working on a layer there. I'll see how this goes, but I'm just set it up this way for my ease, so when I'm in between coats, I can put this aside. So other things you're gonna need is your 1-inch paintbrush, because you're gonna need to apply paint pretty quickly. Your different size tapes. You should have had a bunch in your kits. If you're running low on tape or out of tape, improvise. That is the name of the game this quarter. You do want these little tapes, and I hope you guys haven't used those up because they're really handy for detail work. So I have the 8th, 16th, and 4th that I'll be using. I'm going to show you a couple examples of things I did last quarter. I knocked everything in my living room over. So normally we start this assignment off by doing a big collaborative project. This thing is monstrous. But it'll kind of give you some ideas of how it works. This is 3 layers of paint, or 3 layers of tape and paint. So I'm going to zoom in on a section here that we can see. So you can see here is our bottom layer. Then we alternated it with this earthy tone layer. Then we did another, it's 4 layers. Did another blue-green, and then another earthy yellows and oranges. So what you're gonna wanna do with this project is you're going to want to pick a color palette that you think goes together. Now, you've just done all your color theory. So, as you can see here, the brown, orange, and yellow layer is warm tones with a little bit of this cool tone brown in it, but it's your orangey yellows. And then we have greens and blue-greens on the opposite layer. So those are basically 2 sets of complementary colors, or 2 analogous sets of complementary colors, where you have yellow, orange, and then the tones yellow, orange in between, which is mixed, plus blue, blue-green, and green, which is mixed. So you get these 2 sets of complementary colors, and that gives you a pleasing look. So these were inspired by desert. So the orange and yellows are the ground, and the blues and the greens are the sky. Loosely inspired by the desert. Let me show you some others. So this is a student work from last quarter. You can tell she only had the 1 size or limited size tapes. So the spaces between the shapes are pretty standardized to this 3/4 inch tape. she's got at least 4 layers or 5 layers it looks like here with the yellow pinks, blue purples alternating. In this one she went that yellow orange with the greens and like a green yellow. The color doesn't look exactly perfect on the screen capture. Again, you can see that the shapes aren't as organized as they felt like in the big prints. And part of that is because she didn't have multiple size tapes. So the little tiny tapes are going to really come in handy for making patterns that then can be shown on different layers. So this one, the background layer is actually completely solid. And then it has 3 other layers. So solid as in it's completely covered. It is blue and blue-green. And I'll show you that when we actually get to painting. But then I have a pink purple layer, another blue-green shaped layer, this solid purple layer, and then another blue-green with even some pink splashed in. So you can mix up where the colors are in there, but a lot of your patterns depicted by each layer of tape you lay down. So you start, if you want to start with white, you lay down a pattern of tape, you apply your color over it, you let it dry, you peel that tape, put down another pattern of tape. I'm trying to show this at the best of its advantage here. You peel up that layer, let it dry, peel up that layer, put a new layer down, paint it, let it dry, peel it up. Generally, it works best, and it's okay to leave white showing. It's okay to have plain white in there. You don't have to, you can do a solid base if you want, but it's okay to have plain white. It can add some really interesting looks. I also include, especially in the big ones, we used streaks of white paint through the layers themselves just to add some value and interest in them. But you'll see, like especially like here, that the yellow splashed in that green creates a really interesting pattern. If you really like an area, you can tape it out so each layer it's going to show through. You'll want to work sort of your bigger tapes to your smaller tapes. Although it's okay to use these little tapes on your first couple layers, remember a lot of that detail work is going to be in the back of the painting on the bottom layers, so it's going to not show through as easily. So the more fine detailed work, you can do that on your top layer or your last few, and that way they'll show through a little bit better. So they do actually take more planning than you think, as when you're laying them out and thinking on how you're going to lay these layers down, you might come into challenges where you don't like a color. So I started this in our old paint set. We had this really baby poop brown color, and I started by painting the whole piece of board that color. And I quickly decided that I didn't really like how that looked. I thought it was going to be cool, like brown, and then I was going to use dark blues and greens, but I just didn't really like how it looked. So then I added a layer of the pinks and purples because I had that paint sitting around. And then I added another layer of dark over top of the everything to kind of bring it back through. It hit enough of that brown color to like not make it the main focus, but you do see how it kind of shows through in places, but it's not overwhelming. So there is one other method of laying these out that I don't have an example of because I haven't done one personally, and no students did one last quarter. And that's that you lay your tape out, you paint your layer, you let it dry. Instead of removing the tape and putting new tapes down, you just leave that tape there. Then you put more tape on and put more paint on. And then let that dry, then put more tape on, let that dry. Then after you've done however many layers you plan, I would do at least 4 or 5. You then carefully remove all those tapes, and your final piece is exposed by what's left over. So how that differs is in this way, when we put a piece of tape down, let's see, since I'm using these as one piece, we put paint around it. When we peel that up, we can then now apply paint by putting other pieces other ways and having a hole. And we apply paint through into the layer below. But if you decide you want to do the multiple layer, multiple tape method instead of one layer, one tape method, like these examples were, what you would do is it is harder to tape and talk at the same time than you think. So what you do instead is wherever that tape is, it's always going to be white. So when you remove all the tape at the end, your multiple layers, you will have this dominant white stripe. Because every layer, you're actually covering less area with paint. So if you do that method, you'd actually start with your small tape, and you'd work in kind of the opposite way. Oops. There we go. So you'd work in the opposite way. And you'd start small and then build to your bigger tapes because you're only worried about covering less area. The one thing you don't want to do is at the very end, I don't know why my camera mount, it must be dying. It hasn't been used in years, and it's surprised it has a charge at all. Last thing you want to do, here, let me turn. See. Last thing you want to do in either method is take all your tape off and then apply some paint over the top. Absolutely don't do that, because the idea is to show the tape marks and to use those tape marks as a compositional tool, as well as kind of giving you an idea what you want to do. So I'm going to get started, and I'm going to apply a layer of tape and then mix up some paints. I will check back with you when I have that done. All right, I'm gonna try to hold this while the stand charges. So I'm mixing up my paints. I've got a bunch of cups. If you don't have cups, you can use like a old plate or pan. One thing I would suggest is to have a piece of plastic around. So you could use a grocery sack. Because if you don't have the lids, now some of you I know already have a bunch of these, so then you should be fine, you can make them work. But if you don't have the lids and you're using something else like a plate or an old dish or something, you can cover it with the plastic, and that'll keep it from drying out as quickly. Won't keep it as long as the cups, obviously. So I have the basic colors here. I also have the neons and the metallics, and I'm utilizing all of them because I have them and I might as well. So in this cup, I have the neon orange, the neon red, some white because all of these colors are pretty transparent, and some of the metallic copper. Now, I'm gonna set you down for a second and, well, let's see. Let's see if I can mix one-handed. Okay. So, yeah, this works great. As I'm mixing, you see the colors kind of swirl together, right? You don't have to mix these completely. Now, with this one, I kind of want to see what it's going to do. But you can leave them kind of like streaky and apply them that way, because this is wet on wet. You can blend as you're applying it. You can mix the colors as you apply it. You can get them as mixed or as little mixed as you want. So you can kind of play with that streak factor. It's actually going to add interest. So let me mix this one and see what it looks like. It's gonna be kind of peach. I don't hate it. I might add some actual red to it to just tone it down out of that highlighter colors a little bit. I'm gonna walk you through some of the colors I've put together. So I just added some red to that, and it's now the sort of coral, bright coral, which is kind of cool. I also made a bright green, which is sort of like a chartreusey color. I don't know if I'll use this. I don't know if I'll use either of those, but we'll see. You never know. I have them mixed up, so I can use them if I need them. Here I used that mustard yellow that's in our kit that we haven't used yet. So it's mostly that, a little bit of white because I don't know how opaque that one is, and some gold metallic to add some shimmer. This one is the green in our kit, so that dark kind of foresty green, a little gold metallic, and some white to add opacity. Again, I don't really know how that paint performs. I guess I could totally swatch it here. Yeah, it's pretty see-through. So that white's gonna be needed. Although, as I'm just playing, you notice not mixing all those colors quite right. Got some really interesting little artifacts there. So you can play with it. You're all gonna wanna go out and buy the metallics. Here I've got some, was dark blue, added some white to it. I don't have a ton of that one. I might wanna mix more of that. Here I'm making a dark gray, so it's black with just a little bit of white. Here I have a dark purpley blue, a blurple, if you will. It's very dark. I didn't add any white to that, so I'm gonna use that as like a really dark tone. I do wanna add some, I wanna make sure I'm hitting all of the tones, so like really lights and really darks. So here's for my really light. It is white with a bunch of the metallics added to it. So it's sort of mauve-y light tone. Got a purple. I don't think I added white to that. Oh, no. You can tell kind of by the side of the cup what I put in there. And then this one is white and red. Well, honestly, it's white and the red in our kit, so it's actually just a magenta red. So those are what I have mixed up. I can mix up more as I go. You'll notice I have a pretty good amount of every single color because I'm going to be using them pretty liberally, but also, you know, it's not the end of the world if I have to remix, but I don't want to have if I don't have to. All right, I'll check back in a few and try not to get paint on my phone. So just a shot of them all mixed up, ready to go. You got your studio cat ready to help you paint and get their cat hair in everything, and drink evidently from your rinse cup. So I'm going to put lids on until I'm using them. I think I am going to start with this. I don't know where I'm going to start. We'll see. I have to strategically decide here. So the tape, I put on 5 bands because, you know, odd numbers always look better. 5 bands of the 1-inch tape, and then I have some 3-inch tape. So I put 3 of those to kind of block out some bigger spaces. We'll see how that works. Yeah, cat sitting on the paper. This will be great. All right, so I set up my colors in color groups. So I have purple, magenta, red, orange, and then a white shimmer. Here I have blue, blue, purple, kind of a jean blue, an ocean blue. So I'm gonna use that as a separate kind of layer. And then here I have my black, dark gray, because I'm not using pure black, yellow or mustard yellow, bright green, chartreusey color, and green. So what I'm gonna do is 3 separate color groupings, which is more complicated than what you have to do. You could just use 2 of those. You could use like those 2 or those 2. So like you've seen in the examples, all of those were 2 color groupings, and they did at least 4, but 5 generally looks better. Usually you can tell when a print is done. But because I'm going to be using 3 sets, I'm going to actually need to do more. So I just made it more complicated for myself. Because you'd want to do at least 2 layers of any one color group to make it read through. You wouldn't just have one random blue layer in there. So if I'm doing at least 2 of each, that means 6, and then probably a 7th of whatever I feel like on top. So just to be warned, if you choose this. The other thing is you don't have to be specific on your color mixes, unlike the color theory where you had to have exactly red or exactly. You can be a little bit looser here. So, you know, make some swatches. So these are my blues. So ocean blue, kind of a jean color, which looks different on camera. And that dark blue purple. So I might actually, what layer do I want to start with? Maybe the greens, maybe the blues. I don't know how I feel. Anyway, I guess we just get started.